Welcome to the annual meeting of the Belle Isle Residents Association, also known as BIRA. It is 6:31 and I am officially calling our annual meeting to order. My name is Scott Van Hove. I have served as president of the BIRA board this past year, and I'm your host for tonight's annual meeting. Over the past 19 years, BIRA has worked to preserve and enhance the quality of life for Belle Isle residents. Tonight's agenda includes key quality of life issues that impact all of us. Thank you for joining us as we discuss these important topics. Clearly, you believe these topics matter as this is the largest online audience in BIRA's history. And we believe registrations also exceed any of our prior in-person gatherings. Thank you also to Miami Beach Commissioners Dominguez and Minor for joining us tonight. They have unique perspectives on several of our agenda items. We are fortunate to have them join in our discussion. So we have much to discuss, and we will respect your time by trying to keep presentations as short as possible. Our goal is to end by 8 p.m. or earlier, and with your help, we think we can make this happen. So before we begin, let me mention a few unique features of the Zoom webinar platform. First, the menu options on Zoom often disappear as the meeting unfolds. You might need to move your mouse or touch your iPad screen to get the menu to reappear. Tonight, we are using the webinar version of Zoom, so it's possible your menu will stay visible throughout the meeting. If it does, great. If it doesn't, move your mouse and it'll reappear. Second, we will have questions throughout the meeting, but I'm going to do them in an order. We have more than 50 of our 175 registrants ask questions as part of the registration process. They will get priority, the questions they raise. I will then go to the Q&A feature, which is on your menu in the Zoom webinar. Throughout this meeting, you will be able to submit Q&A as we address each topic. And finally, if time is available, we will also go to live questions. The last thing I will note is that we are utilizing the chat feature today or tonight, and you will be updated on topics sort of throughout the meeting. So with all that in mind, let's get started. I'd like you to meet Herb Frank, a longtime member and former president of BIRA's board. Herb will address a few administrative matters before we get to the agenda. Herb?
Good evening. Thank you, Scott. Before discussing the slate of board members for 2023, the board of directors wish to thank recent board members who have stepped down from the board. Their excellent work on the board was very important to enhancing the quality of life for those living on Belle Isle. So thank you, Arlene DeTore, our new city commissioner, Laura Dominguez, and Gary Corr. Most of all, Scott Diffenderfer, our leader for over 10 years, had decided to leave the BIRA board as he wishes to continue to remain on the City of Miami Beach Design Review Board and eliminate any potential conflicts of interest. Scott, we wish you only the best. Thank you. For this year, 2023, the nominating committee consisted of David Leeds, Sean Patrick Bryan, and me. And we would like to introduce the BIRA board slate consisting of 11 individuals. The following 8 board members are completing their second year of a 2-year term, ending on 12/31/23. Sean Patrick Bryant lives in 16 Island Avenue. Herb Frank lives in Venetian Way, 10 Venetian Way. Kara Glazer in the Vistas, David Leeds, 20 Island, Debbie Leibowitz, 11 Island, Jack Robbins, 5 Island, Gary Rugg, 20 Island, and Scott Van Hove, 10 Venetian Way. To be reelected for a 2-year term starting 2023 through 12/31/24 is Nikki Goldbeck, 20 Island Avenue, a returning board member. And people being elected for the first time for a 2-year term starting in 2023 through 2024 are Julie Arch, 11 Island Avenue, and Alexander Jimenez, who lives on Farrey Lane. And people being, we would like to have every condo building represented on the board, and we're missing 9 Island Avenue and 3 Island Avenue. We would also like to have some younger board members on the board. Please let us know if you have any interest. And now, please vote. Belle Isle residents, members, we ask you to click on the button below that says raise hand. And when you click on it, that will be meaning you are voting in favor of approving the slate. So why don't you do that now? Slide down to the bottom where it says raise hand and do it. Let's all do it. At this time, I suppose everybody has had a chance to vote. Is that right, Scott?
It is.
Okay, and if you oppose this board, you can raise your hand now. Let's hope no one does. So there you have it. Based on the vote in favor of this slate, we will now ask Commissioner Laura Dominguez to swear in the board members. Laura, thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to the slate. You've been elected by the Belle Isle residents to represent their interests by serving as a director. The members have chosen you because you exemplify high standards of professional conduct. During 2023, the residents will expect you to handle the affairs of the organization in an ethical and competent manner. This is an important responsibility. Do you pledge to accept this responsibility to the best of your ability?
I do.
Congratulations, you're all sworn in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Congratulations to our new board members. These volunteers are working to benefit all of us on Belle Isle. Thank you for your service. For those of you watching tonight, please consider applying for a board seat. We can use your help and leadership. So, two more administrative matters before we move to the agenda in full. First, we need to approve the prior annual meeting minutes from last year, which was February 10th. All but board members present received a copy of those minutes prior to this meeting. I need a motion and a second to accept those minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you. That's Herb, and I saw Julie second that. So all in favor of the minutes from last year, please raise your hand. Great, thank you. Approved. And second, we have a brief financial update from our board treasurer, Kara Glazer.
So as of December 31st, 2022, the bank balance for Bureau was $15,913. And this is after the collection of all membership fees from the 8 condo buildings on Belle Isle, in addition to several personal donations received by Bureau and our normal operating expenses.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, we are actually tracking exactly according to our schedule, so we are off to a very good start. Now on to the rest of our agenda. It is Bureau's great pleasure to introduce Commissioner and current Vice Mayor Stephen Miner. He is joining us while he is on vacation with his family. We appreciate in particular his special effort to participate with us this evening. Commissioner Miner has been a leader on many quality of life issues over the last since his election. Of particular interest to Belle Isle residents are noise, that's both vehicles on the roads and vessels on the water from our perspective, and traffic. The commissioner will make opening remarks on these topics and perhaps a few others, and then we will take questions. This is a good time for you who are observing, now almost 100 of you, to use your Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to ask questions. Commissioner Miner, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it, and great to be with you all. I'm actually in Universal Studios in Orlando right now with the family, but hopefully they're on some rides. But it's really an honor to be invited tonight, and didn't want to miss the opportunity in your annual meeting to talk with you all. So first of all, thank you to the Belle Isle board. Great board. A lot of behind-the-scenes work goes in communicating with us as on the commission and relaying concerns, and you have a very a board that's very active and always on top of us, making sure that we're giving due time and consideration to the Belle Isle. So thank you for that. I'm not just saying that because you invited me tonight. It's great working with you all. Also, our newest commissioner, Commissioner Dominguez, great to see her. Not new to any of you, but new to our commission, and great to work with her. And I'll tell you, the fact that and Scott mentioned all the individuals that are sort of on this call, which broke a record. And I think we're seeing that throughout the city on many different issues. And just the fact that we had this battle, so to speak, whether it be an election versus an appointment, shows you that our residents are being heard, that we residents want their representation and they want the quality of life issues addressed. There are so many challenges and they're just increasing exponentially, and we need to address them. So I just want to address three things. Scott mentioned noise and traffic. I just wanted to briefly address policing and crime. One of the issues that definitely impacts Belle Isle is the criminal conduct of the dangerous biker and bicyclist group. And I've spent a lot of time talking with our police chief and police department on that. There's one of your residents who I know is on this call now, who was attacked, and his son was right nearby in the car. It's just inexplicable that this can happen in our city. And we need to shut it down. It's difficult. There's 20 or 30 or 40 of them coming through at any given time. But we are making efforts. I actually reached out to Miami-Dade County Mayor Cava, who was actually very helpful. She put me in touch with law enforcement in Dade County, because we really need to coordinate with the county and Miami, because the individuals are coming from there that are coming and terrorizing our neighborhood. So we need to shut it down. We need to make arrests and prosecute those individuals as well. And of course, a proper police presence to deter, especially as they come over the bridge. Just wanted to make a quick comment about our not only our police department, which gets a lot of focus, and we have a great police department. I'm always advocating for more police presence. That's something that I'm literally on a daily basis. But our municipal prosecution team and program, when I had dug in and looked at the data, in 2021, we only successfully prosecuted 8% of our cases, which means for every 100 arrests, 92 of them were almost like it didn't happen. I'm not going to minimize an arrest, but most of those individuals are repeat offenders, many arrests. So to them, it's not as earth-shattering. And really, we were not having the accountability. I actually proposed, and big credit to our commission too. I can't do this alone. I can propose all I want, but our commission overwhelmingly supported over 10 different items that I brought. And since May, when we added additional prosecutors, we're successfully prosecuting now 93% of the arrests that we make. Now, we don't handle felonies. That's the state attorney's office. But on the misdemeanors that we have jurisdiction over, we're prosecuting them, and we're having a lot of success. So I want to touch on the noise issues. One of the issues I know you're having in your neighborhood, and it's really most of the city, is the modified mufflers, exhausts that come through, and particularly when it happens in the middle of the night, wakes people up. It's obnoxious. It drives me crazy personally, because I hear it, and it's one of the big issues. Really become one of the big issues I hear from our residents. So one of the items that I brought as an initiative last year was a noise meter and camera technology. We're the first city in Florida now to implement that. There are a handful of cities throughout the country, including New York, that are using it. And really what it does is it can detect the noise from where it's coming from. If it goes over a certain decibel level, takes a picture, captures it, and we can potentially issue warnings from it. And also it gives data to our police department to where the hotspots are. Although I think we're fairly confident we know where the hotspots are. So I'm hoping that was literally just implemented and put up within the last month. Belle Isle was not one of the first 3 on the pilot program. I do not have final say. The police department, that was kind of the agreement that we had, is that they would have final say over the locations, but they are mobile. And I think your area is a prime place for perhaps the next or in the pretty soon to get that pilot program up and running. The police department also has trained what's called a NEAT team, a noise enforcement and abatement team, to be able to actually issue the tickets, because the cameras, we cannot issue the tickets. Although I'm actually working with the Florida legislature and what's called a policy arm called OPEGA to try to change the law on that, but that's a little bit way off. but police officers can actually issue a ticket. It is a violation. And we have a team. I've seen the data. We don't issue a lot of tickets on it. I am trying to push, and I've brought a resolution to our commission to try to increase that. I mean, obviously, our police department has a lot of responsibilities, but I think this is an important one that we can increase our enforcement on. So that's noise from the vehicles. We could also issue tickets for noise from loud music. I wanted to touch on the waterways. I actually have about 4 different items dealing with the boating issues that we face as a city, and all of those impact Belle Isle. And you should know all of these items are going to be discussed at our Public Safety and Neighborhood Quality of Life Committee, which I chair, on February 28th. And just for anyone who doesn't know, so our commission obviously meets once a month, sometimes more than once a month, but generally once a month. But we have subcommittees, 3 subcommittees in which the commissioners are split up, and 3 of us sit on those committees. Public safety is the one I chair. So these voting items are all going to be on the February 28th meeting. They're very important meetings. Let me just touch briefly, because I don't want to go over. I think I'm hitting up against my time, so I'll just briefly touch on what they are. So we're basically regulating the excessive noise coming from the boats that are near residential areas. We are restricted in a lot of ways, and it's too much time to get into the specifics right now. But we're prohibited in many ways from regulating the noise levels coming from right next to residential areas. There are county laws, there are county jurisdiction, state of Florida. So we're working with them, and that's what these items are, to try to be able to have the ability for us, Miami Beach, to be able to issue those regulations, or if it's not us, to get the county and state to do it. And that also includes prohibiting boats from anchoring overnight. We have derelict boats that we have issues, especially right near the residential areas. We have speeding. I mean, 3 and 5 Island, I know there are complaints about speeding boats, which, by the way, is an issue because it's an open channel, so we can't actually enforce the speeding there. So there are a lot of issues and that's why I'm trying to bring them all together at one meeting so we can go through them all and get a direction where we're going, which kind of leads to the mooring field as well. That's something where city is moving forward on, where we received a number of grants. We're in the process of getting permitting. I think there's a lot of support, broad support by many neighborhoods, but there are actually several neighborhood associations that right now are opposing the mooring field, although it's the official city policy. But and I'd like to get these groups together to try to work it all out instead of it coming out sort of in a dispute in the public meetings. But I think the concern what they have is that the mooring field will create derelict boats or boats anchoring in their neighborhood. So that's something to watch out on. But we are moving forward with it. But it's several years away. There's so many permitting aspects to this, and environmental and marine issues. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but certainly that's something we're working on. I'm running low on time, so I want to hit on traffic. I think traffic generally has become one of the most important and significant issues that we as a city need to address. And certainly Belle Isle, I mean, with the construction going on right now, I feel for you guys. It's not a good situation. It's not a fun situation. I think 3 things that is, I mean, our city is working on a lot of things. I just want to focus on a couple of things that I'm working on. And your board brought to my attention, and I met a couple of times with Herb Frank about the configuration really in front of the standard. And that configuration and traffic signalization and how it works needs to be fixed. So I proposed an initiative and a resolution to the commission, which was approved. Our city administration recently met with County Commissioner Mickey Steinberg. So they're moving forward and looking at how we can make that better. Another item actually that I've talked a lot about, I've mentioned at commission meetings, I've talked to Alina Hudak, our city manager, many times about this. I'm actually bringing an item to commission at the next meeting about more enforcement. I mean, traffic is bad enough, and maybe there are ways and studies that we need to do, but we need better and more enforcement. And our offices are spread thin, but we need them out there. And if there's other ways, and I'm also looking at other alternatives, because you can actually, for traffic movement, not enforcement, for traffic movement, you can have civilians. So they're not trained officers, they're not sworn police officers, but that's potentially an avenue to be able to make sure we have the proper traffic movement and do the best we can. Obviously, with the construction you have, it's not going to be pretty. The other thing is we are beefing up parking enforcement. I know we definitely have more rotations out in the area to try to enforce that as well. Just final thought on the there's an item on the land use committee tomorrow that may or may not come to the commission in the future, and it's relevant to you dealing with the standard, is that potentially increasing or having establishments that want to increase the live music, and also increase the amount of hours that they can sell alcohol for. I'm against it. I don't think there's any need for it in our city right now to increase the amount of hours of selling alcohol or to have live music. It's not going to increase our quality of life at all. I mean, I'm open to listen to anything, but I don't see how that would help. Especially, it's so challenging for our code enforcement because I won't get into the specifics, but it's really challenging for our code enforcement when there are violations. And I'm not saying there would be in this case, but it's so challenging for them to issue the violations. And when they do, they get appealed to the special magistrate, and that becomes a long, cumbersome process. So those are my comments, and happy to hear any questions. But thanks for being engaged. It really makes us and makes me a better commissioner when I hear the concerns from you and try to come up with solutions. And it's a battle every day. We gotta, but number one issue, improve our quality of life, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing.
Great, Commissioner, appreciate it. Just a few minutes over time, but you had some really insightful things and answered a lot of the questions actually that people had raised. So several questions from residents. There's a resident in Nine Island who wants to know why the city of Miami Beach cannot develop a decibel level restriction like other US cities. Why does the city administration consistently seem to oppose that?
Yeah, so there actually is Commissioner Fernandez has an item to potentially bring that decibel system here. There's going to be, I don't think it's not been approved yet, but it's in the works, and I think it's going to be approved as a pilot program. A vendor has been identified to do a pilot. It's going to be on Ocean Drive between around 10th and 14th to see how it goes. I actually have had some conversations with state staff. I'm not 100% sure why the opposition. I think part of it has to do with the current system, which has its own challenges, has been fought in court, and we've won. So there is a system in place right now that really relies on the sort of the standard, the subjective standard that the code enforcement officer is using, but it has passed the constitutional muster, and we've won that. Using a decibel system may have its own challenges, and there could be arguments, and I understand there have been arguments made in other municipalities that there's a lot of interference and background issues that can interfere with the decibel level. So I think that's where their concern is, that we could lose in court. But I think the direction that we're going, that Commissioner Fernandez has brought forward in starting this pilot program, is a good one, and see how it goes. Okay, great. So you mentioned enforcement, and a resident of the Grand Venetian wants to know, why is there this apparent lack of enforcement against drivers, both from a noise perspective and speeding perspective, particularly for those of us on Belle Isle? You know, every once in a while we see officers here, but what you were saying, there is going to be more enforcement? So I've had many conversations with our police chief, Chief Clements, and I have a very close working relationship. I mean, we speak or communicate literally, I'm saying literally every day, sometimes more than once a day. Yeah, I think he'd have maybe a different answer than I'm going to give, so I'll throw that out there. But I've been pushing for this more vigorous enforcement of noise. I think what they would say, and I don't mean to speak for them, is that there are many responsibilities of police, crime being probably most prominent, and the resources are directed there. But I am making a push because I think it could serve multiple purposes, especially when you're talking about late night. So you can have the police presence, they're out there, and then enforcing it in a big way. Now, to our police department's credit, they have trained a team. And when I say trained, because the vehicle exhaust, there is a specific modification that's done to the vehicles. You and I can hear it, but there actually is a component that they're doing that when they issue the tickets, it's not just the decibel level. There's actually it's illegal to modify the exhaust. So they've been trained to be able to identify those. And it's, like I said, it's called this NEAT team, Noise Enforcement Abatement Team. But based on the data that I've looked at and I've asked for, I don't see there's been robust enforcement, and I'm going to keep pushing for it, and hopefully we'll get it.
Okay,
But
great.
I think what's important, and maybe I need to sort of get residents, and you and I have talked about this, Scott, get residents to tell our city administration, our city manager, and our police chief, because I know from speaking at wherever I go to speak, I hear this issue is such an important issue for our residents, that these loud exhaust. I mean, think about it. They're driving by, when they drive through Belle Isle, I mean, thousands of people, literally thousands of people probably hear that noise exhaust, and it's interfering with people's enjoyment of their home and their quality of life. So we need to enforce this and vigorously. And I think once we do sort of a crackdown, the word will get out there and it'll have an impact.
Great. So on traffic, speaking of traffic, there's huge backups on the Venetian Causeway. And one of our residents wants to know why we can't have enforcement or some trained personnel at these intersections to try to alleviate these bottlenecks that happen literally daily, starting at about 4:15 in the afternoon and backing up, particularly going from east to west.
Yeah, it's one of those issues. Again, I've been pushing vigorously, and I see Kevin popped up his camera, and it could be a resource issue, but that is one of the reasons why. And I've been talking to our city manager, police chief about this for a while. I've even had conversations with our city manager, but I'm bringing an item. This is the one I'm bringing an item. If we don't have sufficient resources, then there are other avenues, because to issue a ticket, you need a law enforcement officer, but to have traffic personnel who can keep the intersections clear to help move the traffic can be a civilian. They're trained, but they're not police officers. They're obviously, they don't make as much money. And it doesn't require as much training, but that is something that I think we should look at to potentially alleviate, because this is an issue that is priority number one for your area, but it's literally all over our city right now. It is so bad, and I'm getting the complaints left and right, and justifiably. You can't go in there. I get stuck in it all the time. Scott, we were actually on the phone last week when I got stuck in literally going 45 minutes. It took me to go 1 mile on Collins Avenue. So it's bad.
Yeah, very bad. We only have a minute or so left. I just want to flag for you that a large number of people sent us questions about the mooring field. They are expressing support about it. They're concerned about abandoned boats. I mentioned to Commissioner Minor this morning that just this several days ago, a boat got off somehow, took off on its own and ran into the dock at Bell Towers just this last week. So these abandoned boats can be a real challenge for everyone.
And a pollution.
Yeah.
And a pollution issues. And by the way, our marine control, I've taken a couple of rides with them. They're out there, and I know they're working hard, as are our officers in general. By the way, a big shout out. I push hard our police department, but it's not an easy job. It's they're out there every day, and I have a tremendous respect for what our officers do. But it is absolutely an issue, and that's why I'm saying there's 4 different boating issues that I've brought that are going to be on this public safety meeting, because we have to get to the bottom of it. And by the way, we're also increasing our marine patrol staff, so we've dedicated more resources to it, because we recognize it's such a prominent issue right now.
Yeah, terrific. All right, well, we're going to let you go, but I'm going to leave you with one thought. You mentioned that you don't have to have an officer to do traffic management, but there are lots of people on Belle Isle that would absolutely volunteer to be part of the code enforcement team and write tickets for all of the cars that are and trucks that are double parked on Island Avenue. So if there's any way you can get that done, we'd appreciate it. But I close by saying, we really, on Belle Isle, these are critical issues to us, our quality of life, noise, traffic, boats in the water, anything that you do on these topics is so greatly appreciated. And we really thank you for the work that you've been doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to move on. Our next item is...
Do you want to go to Bill? Go to somebody's house.
No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not even dressed anymore.
Just a second, Gary. We're going to mute you. For those of you who are unmuted, I'm going to mute Jack and Gary. Okay, so we're moving on. The topic that's up next is the Standard Hotel. And we're approximately on schedule. So I'm going to first thank Commissioner Minor again and appreciate his time. And he's staying with us for a while as well. So let's turn to an important topic that emerged very recently related to the Standard Hotel. First, some background. Council for the Standard Hotel asked for a meeting with BIRA in November. We met with the Standard soon after. And we, at the meeting, we learned that the Standard intended to ask the city for permission to have live music and to increase the hours where they can serve alcohol from midnight to 2 a.m. In mid-December, we received a formal letter from council, which included a draft ordinance the Standard said they would file with the city. They told us it would likely be an agenda item on the February 1st committee meeting, which is coming up shortly. BIRA then invited the Standard's representatives to meet with the BIRA board, which they did on December 21st. The BIRA's board later determined that the Standard's requests, if approved, would adversely impact the quality of life of Belle Isle residents. At that point, the board created a task force to develop an action plan to address all of these challenges. They worked intensively for the past 5 weeks, including over the holidays, to address this issue. We're working on many fronts, all of them simultaneously as the clock was ticking. We had no choice but to move forward rapidly on a number of items. Initially, I'm just going to discuss the survey, the resident survey. We launched that survey using a tool called SurveyMonkey. We wanted to be certain we understood the views of Belle Isle residents regarding the Standard's proposals. We scrubbed BIRA's mailing list to be certain the participants in the survey would be limited to Belle Isle residents only. We removed people whose residential status we could not confirm. We then emailed the survey to everyone on that scrubbed list. And in addition, we worked with all 8 condo buildings on Belle Isle. Each manager distributed a link to the survey, and they did follow-up emails as well. Our goal, of course, is to reach the largest audience possible of Belle Isle residents, and we only wanted Belle Isle residents. The survey launched the morning of January 3rd, and then it closed on midnight, January 15th. So it was open for 13 days. With that background, I'm going to share the survey results. And hopefully you will see, can I get a thumbs up from anyone on the panel? Can you see this? Yes. Okay. So you'll notice that this is first a report from SurveyMonkey. You can see that at the bottom. You can also see this came out on January 16th. We closed the survey the prior night at midnight on the 15th. The most amazing thing to me as the survey went forward is the number of responses we received. There are approximately 1,200 housing units, excluding Belle Isle, which has not yet opened. So we've received a huge response. Now, granted, some of these people might be 2 people in the same unit. We were expecting approximately 300 people. We thought that would be a good result. This is a spectacular result from across the island. We asked the fundamental question, are you a resident of Belle Isle? So we wanted people to confirm before they proceeded that they were. You can see here that essentially 98% of the residents said yes. There were 11 people. Hopefully these slides are flowing and you're seeing it. I see a nodded head. 11 people said no. We actually did check those additional people, and they were owners and possibly renters, which is why they listed as not being a resident. So a huge representation in our survey. Now, as you might guess, most of the respondents would come from the larger buildings, and you can see the little orange bar graph there is 9 Island, which is, I believe, the largest building on the island, and it did have the highest number of participants in the survey. Here are the actual raw data. 9 Island had 151 responses to the survey. 4 of our buildings, I think I just moved that too far. 4 of our buildings, Island Terrace, Costa Brava, Belle Plaza, and 9 Island had more than 100 participants in the survey. So broad cross section. As a percent of the total, even the smaller buildings had, really large participation. So moving to the questions. The first question we asked related to live music, and we asked residents to tell us whether the city should change the law and allow the standard to play live and music outdoors every day until 8 p.m. The feedback from our residents was extraordinary. 84% of the respondents were opposed to live music outside. 84%. As a number, 596 of 712 participants were opposed. But we then asked the question a different way and asked, how about indoors until midnight, which is what the standard told us they were going to request. Again, overwhelmingly negative response from the Belle Isle residents. 78% of residents were opposed. 564 of the 712 participants said no. We then asked the other item the standard asked, they wanted to increase their time to serve alcohol until 2 a.m. They were going to limit it to indoors, and we asked our residents whether the city should go along with that. And again, overwhelmingly negative, 84%. This was actually the highest number of negative votes. 599 residents of the 712 who participated in this survey said no. So, in politics, a landslide election is often defined as one in which the winning candidate beats their opponent by at least 10 percentage points. If you get 55% of the vote, you clearly had a landslide. Our own Commissioner Dominguez, who's with us tonight, recently exceeded that rule. She won her special election by a stunning 61% of the vote, or a 22% margin versus her runoff opponent. What a win. So if that's the context, these numbers are off the charts. The margin of positive to negative was between 56 and 68%. Belle Isle residents, we hear you loud and clear. The Bureau Board will do everything in its power to oppose the standards efforts to change the rules under which they operate. So in addition to this survey, I want to share with you the other things we've been involved in. We contacted neighborhood associations, including the closest ones to us and others around the city, and we've received letters of support from them. We've contacted the City of Miami Beach municipal employees and asked various questions about these proposals. We filed public records requests with the police department, the planning department, and code compliance so we could understand what the standard has been up to over the years. We've also met with all 6 commissioners and the mayor, explaining the Bureau's position on this matter. These meetings were coordinated and scheduled by Gary and Wendy Rugg. Gary is a member of the Belle Isle board and a member of our task force. They being Gary and Wendy, worked as a team and represented Bureau's interests with these elected officials. They have achieved some pretty amazing feedback from all of them. All 6 commissioners and the mayor have told Gary and Wendy they will not support the standard. They will not support or sponsor their ordinance. and they will vote against it if it is presented to them. Thank you, Wendy and Gary, for your terrific lobbying work. So, given the lopsided resident survey results and the terrific news from our lobbying team, the question now is what lies ahead. Tomorrow is a commission meeting, and tomorrow is the release of the packet for the commission meeting, which is scheduled for February 1st, a week from tomorrow. We will know when the packet is released whether this proposed ordinance appears on the agenda. We don't believe it will because we're not aware of anyone who will sponsor the ordinance. Nonetheless, we are going to pay attention. We'll let you know if things change. We also need to be vigilant in the months ahead. We know the standard has very deep pockets, and we know they have lots of lawyers working on their behalf. So anything is possible. But rest assured, if necessary, Bureau will continue to push back on these proposals. We'll lobby the commissioners and mayor again. We'll share these lopsided results from our survey. We will get our residents involved. We will get them writing letters. And if it comes to a meeting, we will build mass attendance at those meetings to make sure our leaders understand that our neighborhood does not support expanded liquor hours and it does not support live music. Now, we will be, again, as I said, checking tomorrow to make sure. But if we're wrong, you'll be receiving an email from us during the day tomorrow with new requests for assistance. But for now, we believe there is not going to be support for them to be included in the agenda. So before we move further, I thought I'd ask Laura, our Commissioner Dominguez, to join us. And as a new commissioner, first, we would appreciate any feedback you have about the steps we've taken so far. Anything you think we may have missed that would have been wise for us to pursue. And then sort of lastly, what things should we be focusing on or paying attention to in the weeks and months ahead?
Well, you've done a great job with keeping on top of the committee and the commission meetings and being informed. And by doing the survey, by meeting with the developer, by going to the standard, I know you had meetings there, and attending the different committee meetings like the DRB and land use and the commission meeting, and organizing. Staying organized and vigilant is absolutely the best recommendation that I can give. And Belle Isle is very special, and it's remained a residential community and very special because of BIRA. You know, almost 2 decades worth of work that you've done to preserve the quality of life here. So this is very important for BIRA and the residents to stay involved and stay informed. I recently had a meeting on Thursday of last week with the developer and their lobbyist at the standard. And my understanding is that they're at this time abandoning changing the alcohol hours and the loud music. Instead, what they're going to focus on in the short term are 2 things. One, in the outdoor section of the standard where the restaurant is, there's currently a bar that's outdoors at an angle. That bar is allowed to be there. It's considered a legal non-conforming use. They can skin the bar and make it nice and remodel it, but what they'd like to do is rearrange the bar. So if they touch the bar, then they lose that status of legal non-conforming use. So they'll likely approach the commission on the variance. Since the bar is at an angle, they want to move it so that it's at the same line as the east wing, and they would give them more outdoor space. So that's one thing they mentioned that they're looking to pursue. And the other thing is they have approval from a previous project submission for 50 feet because they want to add parking. And that's the plan that they're going to pursue, add parking on that side, reconstruct that area. And in addition to the parking, they want included in that 50 feet, 6 residential units. And because it would be combining residential with the transient hotel, that would need a special approval.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Just so everyone knows, we have not received any formal notice of those requests. We'll weigh in on those as time passes. I was going to head on to our next meeting because we are, or our next topic, because we've run out of time, but I do see Commissioner Arriola has his hand raised. So if we could unmute him, he might have a question for us. Yes, no?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, yeah, just wanted to say hi. Thanks for having me. I will tell you, you guys run a very, very nice meeting. Definitely one of the better neighborhood association meetings that I've been a part of. And I think it's safe to say sometimes it's even better than we run our own commission meetings. But Wendy and Gary did a great job of spearheading the efforts for Belle Isle neighborhood. Yeah, I don't think the standard is going to get much traction, if any, with their request. I think what I'd like to speak about is the mooring fields, or answer any questions that folks may have about it. As you may know, I'm the one who's been spearheading this for the past several years. Getting the funding for it, moving it through the legislative process, building support throughout our community. In fact, it all started in Belle Isle. Sunset Harbor has jumped on board. West Avenue Neighborhood Association has jumped on board. We're starting to get a little bit of resistance from the Sunset Island neighborhood. And I think mostly it's because they just don't fully understand what the mooring field will entail, but also I think misinformation on their part. They're fearful of unintended consequences, but I think we just need to sort of walk them through why those concerns are probably not well founded, and hopefully we'll be able to move forward on this, because I think it's really important for all our collective neighborhoods that are affected by that are on the bay. The problem has gotten worse over the last several years and is clearly going to get worse as the city of Miami is building 2 more, possibly 3 more mooring fields themselves, thereby pushing the derelict boats that they currently have on their bayside more towards Miami Beach. So a bad problem is going to get worse in the coming years. So, one of the reasons I sponsored and spearheaded the mooring field is, an anticipation of what I think is going to be a really bad situation.
Commissioner, actually, first of all, thank you for being the leader on this. And we have had several discussions that when you depart the commission, we want to make sure that there's a new champion, because of your efforts, this is moving forward, if albeit slowly, because of lots of regulatory things, but it is something that we care deeply about. Now, since we have you, I can't let the opportunity go. Tomorrow, as part of the land use discussion, I believe it's tomorrow, land use, they're going to be discussing a pilot proposal that you have for live music in establishments in Miami Beach. How would that affect Belle Isle? And is this potentially a backdoor way where live music will be foisted on residents of Belle Isle because of this new rule or this new program?
So yeah, thank you for that. So let me just correct one thing. Semantics, live music versus live entertainment. You know, if you've seen us talk about this, particularly me, you know, our current definition of live entertainment captures literally everything from a book reading, spoken word poetry to pantomime. Okay, so somebody literally making no noise but just doing hand gestures, that's considered live entertainment. And you know, one of my concerns is that our definition of live entertainment is overbroad, and then if it were challenged in a court of law, it would be struck down. And if it were struck down, then you open up Pandora's box throughout the entire city, where we wouldn't have any ordinance to protect our residents, neighborhoods, and you know, from establishments. So one of my first priorities is to try to craft a definition that would pass legal muster. So that's one thing. The other thing is, with respect to live music, I'm not looking, or I don't think any of my colleagues are looking to expand, you know, live performances of, rock and roll bands or anything like that, particularly in neighborhoods that have resistance to it. But what I'm hoping to build support in our neighborhoods and with my colleagues are, you know, can we do pilot programs to help our local business establishments have live performances that are contained, you know, low decibel, controlled hours, and even days of the week, so that we can sample to see what we can, find supportable. So, for example, this came up a couple years ago. Icebox had approached us to have a piano in the evenings, and I think they were open to, you know, suggestions, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Our Mexican restaurant here in Sunset Harbor has mariachi music on Sunday brunch. You know, those kinds of things on a pilot basis. Would we entertain it? My personal feeling is yes, we should try to do what we can to support our local businesses, and do it in a fashion that residents can find acceptable, rather than having a broad prohibition on any kind of entertainment, even entertainment that makes no noise. Another example of, you know, I think the absurdity of our current legislation is, if I were to plug in, you know, my iPod and play music that is not live entertainment, no problem. DJ comes in, plays the exact same music at the exact same decibel level, that's live entertainment and would be prohibited. So, you know, I think our current legislation is just overbroad. I don't think it would pass legal muster if it were challenged. So I'm trying to, you know, encourage us to craft something a little more, sane, and also try to do something that will help support our local businesses. You know, we do compete with Wynwood, the design district, everything across the bay. And if we want to,
Commissioner, I'm
try
sorry.
to have good
I'm
mom
sorry.
and pop, good mom and pop businesses and not chain restaurants, we should try to do what we can to support them.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, Commissioner, I've got to stop us there. We got to get back on schedule. But these are good insights, and certainly we're going to be paying a lot of attention to what you're talking about, because it might impact us as well. Thank you so much for being here and also participating. Okay, so we are now a bit behind schedule. We have with us tonight Kevin Polito, Director of Neighborhood Affairs Division, who will provide a brief update of the sewer and water pipe replacement project. Kevin, are you here and ready?
Hi there.
To chat? Thank you.
Hey, yep. Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity this evening. I'm going to get us right back on schedule, because this is a brief update. I do want to congratulate the new board and to all the bureau members on tonight. I can tell you, in all my years, over 100 people on a neighborhood association is really impressive. I think that's the highest number I've seen. I won't tell the other neighborhood associations, but congratulations. You all have a great following here. Congrats to the new board. So with me this evening is Matthew Lepera. Matthew is your project engineer from the Public Works Department. I'm going to go ahead and bring up my presentation. If I could just get a thumbs up that you all see that. And also, thanks so much. And also on the call is Gabby Gonzalez. Gabby works on my team. She's your Mid-Beach neighborhood coordinator. So through Gabby and I, we work with all of the residents and the neighborhood associations for any questions that you have from the city. So this evening, I want to give you a brief update on what's taking place on Belle Isle. And for those of you traveling from the Miami side, you've also seen it on Rivo Alto. So this is our Venetian Causeway water and sewer main replacement. I'm sure you've all seen it. For those of you that are new, I know we have a lot of people on the call. What's currently occurring is the city is replacing your water and sewer mains that run into the city. And you could actually see the old mains, or they're the current mains at this point. They are connected to the bridges. So you can see them there. That's a photo. I'm sure most of you lived through the different breaks we had last year. Those breaks resulted into long closures on the Venetian Causeway. So I'm sure some of you have experienced that. The idea with this project is we are now removing the lines from the bridge themselves, and we are doing a directional bore, which means we are sending them underground. So a lot of the work that you see is actually the drill equipment, and they are pushing those new lines underground across under your island and into Rivo Alto underwater as well. Contractor for this project, I'm sure you've all seen them around. It's David Mancini's and Son. So quickly on the timeline, again, for those of you that may have not seen this in the past, we are completing phase one actually at the end of this weekend, and I'll get to that in a second. Once we complete phase one, we're going to go into phase two, and I have some illustrations here that are going to show you not much is going to change, but there will be some, I think, needed relief in terms of the bike lane and the sidewalk. After phase two, I'll also show you some diagrams of phase 3 and 4 and what that's going to result. Phase 3 will commence in March, and then phase 4 in May, taking us into August. One thing that this board, and again, to echo what all the commissioners said, how important organization is, one thing this board brought to our attention very early on is a request for some relief with the bascule bridges and those drawbridge schedules, because I believe right before the project, they were going up approximately every 30 minutes, sometimes on signal, and that creates a backup in itself. So let alone with a lane closure in place. So following that request from BIRA, we reached out to United States Coast Guard. They are the jurisdiction on the bridges, and we asked them for a temporary bridge schedule. And that's exactly what they did, especially during peak hours. So 7 to 9 a.m., the drawbridge was to only open on the 7 to 9 a.m., only on the hour. That's during morning rush hour. 9 to 4 went back to that hour and every half hour. Then during rush hour from 4 to 7, again, it's only on the hour. That was to assist. The Coast Guard's prerogative is marine traffic. That's really what they care about. But this was a way for some relief. So I mentioned this expires January 31st. We are working with Miami-Dade County and the Coast Guard for an extension, and we're hoping that extension is going to take us through August when our project is complete. So we're kind of trying to piggyback off that county extension. So now phase 2, traffic impacts. So you may see the word MOT. The MOT is a maintenance of traffic. That just means the temporary traffic pattern that you see today. All the different cones, all the different bollards and barricades that you see around the island, those are all part of a MOT. So if I use that word tonight, that's what I'm referring to. So the temporary traffic pattern you have today is the eastbound. So if you're traveling east into our city, you have a closure at Rivo Alto, and then you also have a closure on Belle Isle. You've all experienced it, I'm sure, at this point. If you're coming eastbound, you're going to turn right into Rivo, then back on the Venetian Causeway, and then turn right onto South Island Avenue. On Belle Isle, you have the option to turn right, as most people do. You could also make that left if you're going up towards the Standard and some of the apartments up there. So what's the biggest change with phase 2? Phase 2, which will commence most likely on Monday, what's going to occur is now the sidewalk and the bike lane will open. What we're thinking is going to happen, you're going to get some needed relief. I know Scott and Sean have brought to our attention multiple times of our electric scooter friends and the electric bicycles, those micro mobility devices that were just sprinting through the park and creating kind of a dangerous situation. We tried different things with signs and also barricades, but now you're going to have the bike lane open. So I think we're going to have all of our electric friends just use the bike lane and kind of jet off into the city. The closure itself, if you're driving into the island, that's going to remain the same. There's going to be no changes there. You're still going to have to turn right and head south into both neighborhoods on Rivo Alto and also on Belle Isle. So now I'm going to do a quick look ahead onto the next upcoming phases. Again, kudos to your board. They request a ton of updates. We are going to remain in contact with you all as we move into the future phases of this project. Currently, what's on your screen is phase 2. Again, you've all experienced this, I'm sure, on Rivo Alto. If you're traveling eastbound, you now need to go. You currently go into the neighborhood and then come back on. But again, the bike lane and sidewalk will reopen. So that's the biggest thing in phase 2. So there's an overview of phase 3. Phase 3, we're expecting it to commence in March 25th, about 2023, late March. Phase 3, what we're going to see is a shift. So you're going to have that MOT, that temporary traffic pattern. Eastbound will open. So now westbound is going to close. When westbound closes, very similar to what it is today, if you are exiting our city, you will now have that closure on Belle Isle, on Venetian Way itself. Residents will have the opportunity to make a right and to go north up where the standard is, make a right and continue westbound. If you're a resident of Belle Isle, you will have your same opportunity as you have today to make the left and travel south and go home into the condos for those of you who live in the south side of the island. Going into Rivo Alto, again, westbound is closed. So you're going to have a similar condition here. The only difference is there's going to be a closure. If you look on, it should be the left side of your screen, there's a little blue box there. That little blue box is a second work area. So what that means is residents traveling westbound will not have the opportunity to turn right and go north into Rivo Alto because they'll have that closure there. So all that westbound traffic is going to need to go on the south side of the island and then come around the work zone. Again, this is commencing in March and will carry us into May. So overview of phase 4, very similar to phase 2, what we were just talking about. The only thing that changes, remember phase 3, we went to the north side of the island. So now for phase 4, we're still on the north side of the island, but your sidewalk is going to reopen and the bike lane will reopen. So whatever incidents we see there, hopefully this will, also alleviate that. One thing we have continued to state with your board is if there's anything that's seriously not working, we know there's been some requests that we've evaluated and they haven't been implemented, but for anything that's seriously not working, the team is open to making those changes. So phase 4, again, this is phase 4, westbound closed. You now lose that little work area, so you'll have an opportunity to turn right and go around. And then one thing, again, kudos to your board. One thing that was asked, we do have a dedicated email list for Belle Isle. So if you scan that QR code with the little dinosaur, I know we're probably all on our mobile device, but I'm sure Scott will circulate that link so you can sign up and get updates directly from the city. And then last thing I just want to mention, when there are weekend work, there has been weekend work taking place, we do send an email. So you do want to enroll, so that way you're getting the updates from us. So that was my timer. I think I got that in 8 minutes, and I know there's going to be some questions. I want to turn it back to Scott.
Great. Thank Kevin. That's very helpful. You answered all the questions that were asked about the schedule. I'm not going to repeat them. In the interest of time, because we are running out of it, I'm simply going to say there are a number, I'll count 18 of them, different complaints about lack of support from a traffic management perspective, that we have difficulty getting across crosswalks. There are no flaggers. We were told there would be flaggers. The police personnel typically are in their car. They're not actually doing anything. Maybe they're doing important business inside the car with their laptops, but they're not directing traffic or stopping people at crosswalks. So we've had all these conversations before. We can have them again offline, but we appreciate the update. And I'm going to have to move us forward. So thank you and your team for being here. This is a necessary project that has to get done. It's very unpleasant, and hopefully it'll be over soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And-
Kevin.
Thank you so much.
All right. So sorry, gang, we are behind schedule, so I'm pushing us along. I'm going to say, and in front of the issue about the Century and Ferry Lane housing situation, that we probably will not have time for questions, but this is an opportunity for education. We're going to ask Laura, Commissioner Dominguez, to start this, and we have a few slides and pictures that we want to show you as well.
So real quickly, the biggest concerns that the residents had in that area are in all of Belle Isle, but are safety and quality of life. But on the north side, where Century and Ferry Lane, there are significant density issues that are driving a lot of these safety concerns. Those areas are non-conforming roads with no sidewalks, no drainage, no turnaround, no swale, and no outlet. And construction continues, and there are some pictures that can be shared.
Can you see that?
Right, so there's 18 single-family lots in this area on Century and Ferry Lane, and they're single-story bungalows. And the zoning for this area is RM1 type zoning, which is for single-family homes. And we're running into loopholes, and that's how one of those buildings came up. And Commissioner Fernandez sponsored a proposed overlay for the area to address the single-family lots and the loopholes. It was initially heard in November land use, and it's back on the agenda in tomorrow's land use meeting. And so what's happening is the commissioner wants to close those loopholes because recent applicants are buying up some of these bungalows and then asking for variances that to build larger structures and covering more of the lot area. And it's a big hardship for the neighborhood. Kara, did you have any other? Kara's the expert on BIRA on this area. She lives in that lane.
Thank you, Commissioner Dominguez. That was very helpful oversight. I think what we're just, focused on is safety and, the city's help in enforcing some of these issues related to illegal parking, blocking of egress and ingress, having police presence when there is digging or blocking of lanes to ensure, because if, as you said, there are significant density issues in these areas, and getting emergency vehicles down these lanes when there is no blocked lane is still very challenging. And then we've been told by emergency personnel when they've come to these areas that if variances are approved by DBR, the Design Review Board, to have setback variances, so to build closer to the road than is allowed, then they may not be able to get their emergency vehicles down these lanes, which will just continue to exacerbate the safety issues that the residents neighboring these small lots are facing. And so, we do appreciate the commissioners listening to these concerns from the residents and helping address them.
So this last picture is the one that sort of frames this for everyone. The house on the left has been replaced by the house on the right. They're quite different structures, massively bigger. And this is the only place, these two lanes are the only places in Miami Beach where you can build a house higher than 2 stories. And that is the loophole that is creating this situation. So Laura is now, Commissioner Dominguez is now on land use. And this will be a topic of discussion actually tomorrow's meeting. I think it's like the 4th item on your agenda, right?
It is, and I had told the city attorney's office that I was interested in co-sponsoring this item.
Okay, great. I didn't see any submitted questions on this topic. I do see 2 people with their hand raised. I'm going to lower your hands, and I'm just going to ask the 2 people who, if your question is about this specific topic, please raise your hand again.
And Scott, while you're waiting, just one more thing. So, I know that the city in past has said when they're potentially proposing changes to ordinances or zoning, that a grassroots movement and resident input is extremely important in these matters. And so attending virtually the land use and sustainability committee meetings, as well as the design review board meetings, and sending letters of your support or objection to these items is extremely important to get your voice heard. So we highly encourage people who have opinions to participate.
Thank you. I'm going to unmute or ask Joanna, who's telling us she has a question about this topic. We'll take one question. Joanna, are you there?
Yes, hi there. Thank you so much. I am a homeowner on Farrey Lane, and I'm not a spring chicken. My biggest asset is my home here. What is being proposed would reduce the value of my home by probably 3/4. I bought on the basis of the zoning that has existed for decades now in this area. I personally find the mention of the character of the neighborhood and the safety of the neighborhood and all of that a little bit obsequious. I think, honestly, for the people who live across the way, you lovely people, that this is perhaps more about your view. Had this building and the Haddad not already gone up, I may have been more supportive, even at my own expense. But at this point, I feel like the die is cast. I mean, the deed is done. We already have now this much taller, larger house, and it's flanked by these little houses, and you can't put the cat back in the bag, or whatever the expression is. It's done.
Yeah.
So I'm reluctant under that circumstance to forfeit a great deal of my what is my greatest asset, the value of my greatest asset at this point in my life,
Okay.
in
Joanna,
order
Joanna,
to, as I perceive, accommodate the view of the neighbors on the lower floors, and
Joanna,
my neighbors and I agree.
Sorry, Joanna, I had to meet you because we have to move on. And just for the record, no one mentioned views in the discussion. I see Alex, who lives on Farrey Lane, also has his hand up. So I'm going to give one more very short comment, Alex, because we have to move on.
So I have just one quick comment, as I live right next to the Chabad, that it's on Farrey Lane. It's a giant building next to my 900 square foot home that I rent. I've dealt with the construction for the last 3 years. It's very difficult to describe what it's like living 5 feet away from it. I'm very in favor of what Joe's talking about. Property rights are important to me. I think if someone's property has permission to do something, as much as I oppose such a large structure on such a small street, I think what we could focus on now, since like Joe said, the die is rolled, these buildings are up, we should all focus on noise starting at 9 a.m. instead of 8. What can we do to help our neighbors in the area if these buildings are going to be going up and 5-story buildings are going up? what can we do to make sure that emergency vehicles can get through, that the noise is not terrible, right? What can we do to have police presence during these with these cranes in the middle of the street? So there are basic things that I did not get in the last 3 years that I would like to see my neighbors get. If someone wants to build a 5-story building, there should be new rules, because what I had to endure was the city basically not helping at all, and it was pretty bad. So I think if we could sponsor some construction safety type stuff, if they're going to put them up, we might as well have some safety in mind. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Clearly a lot more on this topic to come. And for those of you interested, tomorrow, as we mentioned, is the land use meeting and the next step in this process. So we are still behind schedule, actually a fair amount. Our last item is Sean Patrick Bryant, our Vice President, who's going to share a summary of our accomplishments in 2022 and our priorities for 2023. Sean Patrick.
Okay, Scott, you want to turn the screen over to me?
Sorry, let me stop sharing. I apologize.
Okay, and then just let me know that this is going correctly.
We see it.
Is it okay? Is it there?
Yep.
Okay, let me just go through this quickly. Again, my name is Sean Patrick Bryant. Thanks, Scott. And we'll go with a quick review of the 2022 goals that we had, some of the accomplishments that we had, and then also briefly our 2023 goals. Okay, first of all, the park is important to all of us, and we made a lot of improvements. The city workers, the city departments, several of them contributed to this. Some of the stuff we did, we added additional park benches. We've added additional recycle and trash cans. We've added additional dog bag dispensers, and we now cover all entrances into the park, which will hopefully result in a cleaner park. We've added 8 new Bridal trees to enhance and maintain the canopy around the Great Oval. These are all beautiful trees that, as they grow a little bit more, they are going to provide a shade canopy for the people who walk the sidewalk in that oval. Everyone's enjoying the new sod that was added at last year. We have planted, the city's planted several additional trees throughout the park. There are new shrubs planted over by the pumping station to mask some of that view. The right-of-way, right-of-way, that's the area that's along Island Avenue. It's in front of all of our buildings. It's literally the area between the sidewalk and the curb and the gutter. The Parks Department has removed some grasses that just weren't doing very well in the shaded areas. We now have consistent plantings through, and as these have a little bit more time, will mature and give a really good look to Belle Isle. I just want to thank all the city departments that's helped us improve the parks in our neighborhood. Next goal is we had a goal to increase the engagement with Belle Isle residents. Scott talked about earlier about scrubbing the BIRA mailing list. We removed over like 90 that were just unused or old emails from people who've moved off of Belle Isle. We verified that all of the email addresses that we currently have are actually residents of Belle Isle. We've increased the BIRA email list from 480 to 934, which is almost double, and that's really going to help us get information out to all the residents. And we've improved the look and the content of the BIRA webpage. Traffic management is important to all of us. We talked a little bit, I'll just go over it. That intersection is an area in front of the Standard Hotel we continue to address. They did have a really good on-site meeting attended by the transportation departments of both Miami Beach and the Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County Commissioner Mickey Steinberg was actually on site in person, so that was welcome. And more work needs to be done to develop a plan. We've maintained the stop for pedestrian signs on all 5 crosswalks. At times they've been run over. I always say better to run over a sign than run over a person, but it's an ongoing effort to keep those signs up. They really do help bring awareness to the crosswalks. And we've done a massive amount of work with the Miami Beach Parking Department to enforce the commercial parking zones to reduce lane blockage. We actually have 3 different areas with 3 parking spots in each for a total of 9 spaces that during the hours between 9 and 5, those are reserved for commercial vehicles. Residents or guests cannot park in those. And the idea behind those is to get the construction workers and the plumbing vans and electrical vans out of the traffic lanes and to provide them a space to park. And I really want to thank Director Monica Beltran. She has given us a lot of enforcement time, and we're going to continue to work on this. Public Works, we've worked with Public Works to address some of the tripping hazards on the sidewalk. This is ongoing. We know there's more work to be done. I want to give a shout out to the Miami Beach Sanitation Department. You know, they are now providing weekly hand sweeping of the right-of-way areas, which include the sidewalks, the curbs, and the gutters. They're out there every Wednesday morning. If you see them as you're going to your car, please acknowledge them and thank them for their work. Underground electrical utility lines has been a goal. And one of the issues we've been working with Public Works Director Joe Gomez to prod the Florida Power and Light to move this project forward. This is also going to be a 2023 project. Just for everyone's information, Florida Power and Light is currently sitting on $1 million held to cover the majority of the costs of this project. It doesn't cover all of the project, but it covers a vast majority of it. A lot of this money was put in by some of the developers. The rental building that was built and also the Standard Hotel. And I know there's a lot of questions on that rental building. We have no information as far as when they're going to open up. It's not for a lack of trying. We've asked a lot of questions. They want to be really quiet on it. Their website says they're opening first quarter of 2023, and you can go there and kind of look at some of the plans. All right, for 2023, our goals, we're going ongoing work to maintain and improve our park. We are going to work on to upgrade and improve the dog park. We hear everybody loud and clearly. It's a muddy mess, and there's some other issues. Commissioner Dominguez is moving forward, helping us on that. We had an initial meeting with the Parks Department, and we are going to be reaching out for volunteers because we want your input of what you want to see as improvements in the dog park. We have a goal to develop a board of directors president's council. This would be where we have a meeting and one board member from each of the condo building get together to share best practices and to talk about like-minded problems or solutions that they've encountered. And we think we can all benefit from that. No need to, reinvent the wheel every time somebody has a success story. If that's successful, we want to do the same thing where we get our building managers together to share ideas. We're going to continue to build ties with the adjoining neighborhood associations. This includes West Avenue Neighborhood Association, Sunset Harbor, Venetian Isle. I know Herb has worked with some of the Venetian Isles. Scott and I have had sit-down meetings with the board of directors of all 3 of these. All of these different neighborhood associations touch Belle Isle. We all have a common interest and concern, whether it be noise, traffic, mooring field. So we're going to continue that. When we're going to do more to outreach with the city commissioners, educating them on the residents and the concerns of Belle Isle. We might be a really small area, but we have a lot of population here. And we really want to, make sure that all the city commissioners are aware of Belle Isle and can help us to address the concerns. And lastly, we really want to build a base of resident volunteers to work on improving quality of life issues. You know, we want to develop some programs for some social activities, improve the dog park. The park is an ongoing area as long with traffic and public works. And we're going to be pushing out information, asking for your volunteer help. You can always go to our website of belleisleresidents.org and send us a note that you're willing to volunteer. Tell us what your interests are, where you'd like to help. You can also, anytime we send a BIRA newsletter or an email, is reply to that you want to help make Belle Isle even better. That's it, Scott.
Excellent. Thank you. If you stop sharing for your screen. Phenomenal. All right. So we committed to end the meeting by 8 p.m. or earlier. We are 4 minutes ahead of schedule. I am going to thank all of our participants. I'm particularly thankful for Commissioner Dominguez, Commissioner Minor, and our surprise guest, Commissioner Arriola, for their comments and contributions. You've made our meeting much richer. We appreciate it so much. I will also say to my fellow members of the Bureau Board, thank you for all your service. And for those of you still listening, please take Sean Patrick's last request at heart. We need volunteers. We could use your help in so many things. So please contribute and join us. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining us. You will hear more from us in the future. Good night.